Thank the law you're here. That madman was out of control. You were right to put him down. He was too far gone to be of any use to us. And what about you? You aren't hurt, I hope. Why shouldn't I be interested in the well-being of my finest agent? Not to mention my most valuable investment. You've put down the worst riot in our history, rid the colony of a dangerous madman, and saved my life. The board owes you a tremendous debt. We don't have a moment to lose. We're gonna have to work together to save Halcyon, because the situation is far worse than you imagined. We've lost all contact with Earth. It's been 3 years since we've received a message. We've had no contact, no signals, nothing. Earth has gone dark. 2 years ago, the Earth Directorate's frigate disappeared en route to Earth. We don't know if they ever made it. We don't know if there's an Earth to go back to.
So we've got to make do on our own. Seems to me that'll make us stronger in the end anyhow.
We must find a way to carry on by ourselves. For better or worse. Halcyon is the only home we have left.
First the food supply, and now this. That's it. I'm done. There is no plan, just random chaos.
Get a hold of yourself, Vicar. You're not going to be of much use wallowing in despair. We're alone, Captain. That's all I know for certain. Whatever happens to this, we're going to have to deal with it on our own. Returning to Earth is not an option. Yes, we do have a long road ahead of us. But I have faith in you. The service you've done for this colony is nothing short of extraordinary. You're the reason I'm still standing here today. The board will survive because of you. And as the board goes, so goes Halcyon. It's time we carried out the program. I trust I can count on your support, Captain. I'm pleased to hear that. The program is too important to hand over to the board's bureaucrats. That's why I'd like you to take the helm. I'll see to it that the lifetime employment program operates under your supervision. We'll work together to save this colony. We're on our own now. Earth isn't coming to save us, so we're going to have to save ourselves.
The OSI teaches that everything in the universe happens according to the grand plan. But the stranger that arrived in Halcyon was an unplanned variable. From the moment he landed in Emerald Vale, his actions altered the course of history. The riots in Tartarus ended in a total victory for the board. Without any significant threats to challenge their power, the board asserted their control over the colony. The lifetime employment program began immediately, and the people of Halcyon did exactly what they were expected to do. They obeyed. Sophia Akande converted the labyrinth from a prison to a processing center. She jettisoned the original colonists out of the Hope and transformed the ship into a massive storage facility. One by one, the workers of Halcyon surrendered themselves to the program. They arrived with their families and their friends, their colleagues and their neighbors, and then, one by one, they marched into their stasis chambers. As the workers of Halcyon slept in their hibernation chambers, their settlements became ghost towns, left behind by the board to be reclaimed by nature. Only Byzantium remained, a shining beacon of civilization in an otherwise abandoned colony. The people of Byzantium spent the rest of their days gorging themselves on their stockpile of resources. As for the workers of Halcyon, they never felt the effects of the collapse. They never felt anything at all. Left unchecked, the war on Monarch consumed both MSI and the Iconoclasts. And when the sulfur clouds settled, only stragglers from both factions remained. Some found their way to Sublight, some to Terra 2, and some lived their final years fighting for food in the wilderness. In the end, only the beasts remained. Edgewater's cannery met its production quota for the first time in 3 years. As a result, the adjutant rewarded every worker in Edgewater with a place in the lifetime employment program. Reed Dobson was granted 25 years in suspended animation. However, a computing error adjusted his duration to 250 years. A trouble ticket to resolve this error remains open. Junlei Tennyson struggled to maintain the Groundbreaker's independence. Mechanical failures forced her to make increasingly uncomfortable compromises to stabilize her ship. The board bought her out of the Groundbreaker one deck at a time. While she kept the ship intact, her role as captain became a symbolic one. As smaller settlements were swallowed up and their workers drafted into the lifetime employment program, Byzantium continued to thrive. While its citizens lived in decadence and extravagance, a small cadre of scientists worked to solve the nutrition crisis that threatened Halcyon. No one else much noticed the townships that disappeared from the map, or the luxuries that slowly lost their luster year by year. As a reward for his part in her courageous rescue, the adjutant invited the vicar known as Max to become one of the leaders of the Order of Scientific Inquiry. Max eventually rose to the top, becoming the presiding bishop of the OSI. He denounced his spiritual meanderings as a misguided attempt to come to terms with his long-dead parents. His only regret was that they had not lived long enough to see that he was right all along. Though Parvati eventually grew comfortable aboard the Unreliable, she never quite came out of her shell. And she often wished aloud that her dad was still alive to teach her about the finer points of starship care and maintenance. As the board began to roll out their lifetime employment program, Parvati was plagued by dreams of freezing to death. She began taking increasingly longer shore leave, and she eventually disappeared from the Unreliable entirely. The board never knew what became of her, and under the adjutant's orders, they never tried to find out. Parvati was afforded a measure of peace and left to her own devices. As hard as she tried to drink them away, Nyoka's memories eventually overcame her. Traveling with the crew served as a constant reminder of the family she'd lost, and so she eventually returned to Monarch to get back to what she found most comfortable: the deep end of a bottle and the far end of a trail. Few have seen her since, but travelers often swear they hear her and her machine gun in the night, screaming swears and spitting bullets. Before his untimely death, Captain Alex Hawthorne had plans to restore and modify, for combat purposes, a sanitation and maintenance automechanical that he'd found in a state of disrepair in Emerald Vale's scrapyard. That unit remains broken down and forgotten in the Unreliable supply closet to this day. Though Minister Clark was eventually released from house arrest, long years of isolation left him a changed man, little suited for bureaucratic work or for the colony that was changing around him. He remained in his estate largely by choice, fading from public view. Adjutant Sophia Akande was instrumental in executing the lifetime employment program. While the rest of Byzantium celebrated, Sophia returned to work by partnering with you. The two of you worked hard to ensure the lifetime employment program ran smoothly. With Halcyon's workers suspended in a state of hibernation, starvation and chaos are problems of the past. The lifetime employment program succeeded in its goals, but that success came at a price. The Halcyon of today is nothing at all like the colony of yesteryear. Power remains concentrated in Byzantium, but all the colony's resources serve the lifestyle of the elite, thereby transforming Halcyon into one of the smallest and most exclusive colonies in the system. And what about you, the unplanned variable in the history of Halcyon? After the riots on Tartarus came to an end, you threw in your support with Sophia Akande. While Akande administered the board herself, you oversaw the lifetime employment program, stamping out corruption and negligence. Under your leadership, the program ran smoothly. Halcyon's workers were treated with a modicum of dignity. Your involvement kept the board honest and allowed the board scientists to work without the meddling of bureaucracy. No one knows what's happened to Earth, and no one knows what the future has in store for Halcyon. All we know for certain is this: the name of the Unreliable and that of its intrepid captain will remain the subject of countless stories for years to come.